Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another recap video for the Empire Club scene. Just a quick disclaimer on the recap that was recorded before this video. I forgot to mention that there are, right now we have assets that are instanced in these, the greenish ones and the yellow ones, which are light source assets. They're being linked from other Blender files, and Lucas has made it quite clear to me that it would probably be better if those assets were in their own Blender files separate of like themselves, so you don't have like 30 collections in one Blender file that you're linking from. Now the main reason for that is so that we can have a, say for the AC unit here, this guy, you can have this asset in its own collection for being linked to this Blender file, but then in other collections inside of that original Blender file, you have like, say, the high poly versions or backup versions of this where you applied modifiers and didn't want to lose certain aspects of what those modifiers were doing. So just to keep that in mind. The other things that we're going to cover, I'm going to talk about pivots with assets and how you can move pivots around, as well as the bevel modifier and how you can control the bevels with weights, as well as vertex groups. So those are super cool. With vertex groups, it actually allows you to stack bevels inside of the same asset with a few caveats, but we'll get into that. Anyways, let's jump into it, huh? All right, here's the recap of our scene as it currently is standing. Just make sure we're all set up here. So I went in and instanced all of the windows. So now we have a set for those. I actually made some choices where essentially this window could be used in a number of ways, where it's low to the ground here, which would lead to you wanting to be able to maybe you have someone that you interact with that sells you drinks from like a shop in here, for example. And so this is extended out further because of that, so that you can put stuff on there, maybe menus on the edge. Whereas over here, you can use like a more shallow one. I don't know if I had instanced these, since they might vary in length or depth or size. So they might be unique to the level, in which case I would use this kind of this bluish color. We started instancing the lights, or linking the lights. So these are in another Blender file. And I actually, if I turn on extras in the object mode, you can actually see the light that's in the collection in the other Blender file, and it's just like a area light. If I deselect, you can see it a little better. There's a square or a rectangular area light, and if I switch to this mode and then hide the extras, you can see so we've got lights that are working with shadows. You can also see I've started blocking out different roughness values so that I can start to understand what's going to be reflective. So I can see, this is weird to say it like this, but reflection composition. So like if you see the windows here, it's good to know that those are reflecting these light sources. Also, you can see the emissives on the AC units. The other thing we did in the stream is I started to unwrap this, and we ran into a bunch of issues where weighted normals are having problems with Substance Designer and Substance Painter when it comes to baking your ambient occlusion. Because I'm just baking off of the original mesh, there seems to be some type of issue with convex edges where they become darker. If anyone has solved that problem, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, so we spent our time unwrapping this guy and looking at issues with substance baking and all that. Look forward to the next couple streams, because we're going to start diving into texturing a lot of things and just kind of working through Substance Painter and or Designer when solving problems with materials. But I think other than that, we're starting to get to the point where I think tileable materials are going to be applied to things, and at some point we're going to have to start making, like, for example, these cans. We're going to need to make crushed versions of them, which you guys know that Lucas had made a video on creating crush cans, so maybe we'll go that route. I might be lazy and just model in a few edges and just bend them myself. We'll see. Usually I'm so old school that I get basic like that. But when it comes to texturing this type of stuff, looking at the advertisement or like brand logo art, we're probably going to start digging into that as well, and how I will kind of just make up branding and dissecting what's on a can so that we can make a convincing branded can texture. And yeah, just a few minor adjustments with things and just starting to kind of work through the more technical stuff. Essentially, we need to start building a pipeline for how we're going to texture certain things, which objects will have unique textures, and which ones will just be tileable materials with multiple UV sets, who will have decals, which ones will be mask driven. So you can have like a tileable metal and a tileable rust. That way you have infinite textile density when it comes to the material type. And then you're just locked in with the textile density of the resolution of the mask, which makes itself not too apparent when the two materials that it's masking between are so high res looking. So we'll be looking at that stuff, and hopefully we can solve that baking problem at some point. And if not, I guess we'll find a way around it. Moving around the pivot in Blender became a whole lot easier, I think in like 2.81 or 2.82. It reminds me a whole lot of 3ds Max back when I used to use that. Essentially, in Max, you had a modifier, right? A mirror modifier. And when you'd move that modifier, you're essentially moving what Blender would consider the empty. And that would change the mirroring plane. So I'll show you how I do that in Blender now. Which there's two ways. There's the older way with an empty or an object, if you want, or actually physically moving the pivot around. So first of all, let's make a cube. So we've got this cube. We'll just move it up here. You can see the pivot, or its object origin is right there. It's pivot point. And then if we go to modifiers and add the mirror, where are we at here? My brain mirror. Let's give this some length so we understand what we're looking at. So if we move this around, you can see that the pivot point is the mirror. And if you do a bisect, wherever they pass through each other, that's where it actually would cut and weld at the same time. But let's do something different with this. So you can move this around, right? And then you'll get some interesting like bisecting. But you can also, if you have the object selected and you press Control period, you activate the pivot being the thing you're moving, which I really, really like. If I press Control period again, it goes away from that. It should be known as well that if you have multiple objects and you go into Control period, it's kind of like when you switch to edit mode. So I'm in like edit pivot only state with pressing Control period. So like if I go to other objects, you can see I'm moving them around. Yeah, let's change this a little bit, and I'll just talk about how this all is working. So Control period to kind of bring that back, and I'm going to press Alt G to reset the transform of the position of the object. And so now we have this. I can press Control period. We'll just rotate this 45 degrees, and then we'll just move it so that we get this nice corner clip here. Now you can do it again. You can do another mirror modifier, but this approach doesn't work using the pivot for the second modifier, because if you move that one, you're moving the first one as well, the first modifier. So what you can do is if you copy this modifier, you'll see it makes another one. And then you can just make, honestly whatever you want, like an empty, which would be like a no mesh container here, or an object like this. If you go here and look at the modifier, the mirror object is you can just point to this guy, and anything you do to this will control the position of that. So you can do some pretty cool things. Let me see if I can get the position it in the way I want. This is a lot of the reasons why people want to use empties, is so this isn't really in the way. You can hide that, I guess, technically. Now, if I go and edit this guy, you can see I can bevel this, and all of the beveling works around all of the mirroring. If you do this is a little extra information that's not necessarily to the mirroring, but you can, if you press N, you can add bevel weights to this edge. So that way you can add a bevel modifier and then tell it to just look at the weighting. And so wherever that weight information is, which we'd set to 1, so it's going to be taking the entire effect of what the modifier is saying. You can do that, and it'll be the full effect here. So with that, you can do a custom profile, and they have some presets in here. Oh yeah, and remember, right now the bevel is only 2 points, right? So it's only this edge, so you're not seeing the profile. Let's find an interesting one. So you can see this profile information here. Now, as we add more segments, it has more information in order to actually achieve this shape. And then you can increase the scale of that bevel. Let's do that. And then you can actually see you can actually see the shading happening on there. So this is a really nice way if you need to build like a modular set for a straight edge, a convex and a concave corner point for your trim on the walls or the ceiling or outside of the buildings, any of that type of stuff. Anyways, pivots. That's pivots and a little extra. So beveling in Blender has always been pretty nice, especially with the modifiers. Let's look at them, because metering is pretty nice in it. Let's just like extrude this. We'll inset this and extrude this guy. So we just have some shapes here. I'm actually going to turn on the wireframe. For anyone who asked in the video, this menu here, this radial crazy menu thing here, is machine tools. Just look it up on Gumroad, machine tools. It's a free add-on. Okay, so you look at this mesh. I'll hide that. Let's hide the grid as well. And we'll just move that way over here. So, okay, we've got this mesh. We're going to add the bevel modifier to it, and we can turn up the segment count. Let's do 3 just to emphasize some stuff. And the main reason I wanted to point all of this stuff out is because I didn't know it was here. It's the metering types. So if we do, let's see here, let's limit by angle. So we're only beveling at an angle of 30. Once you surpass 30 degrees is when the bevel will occur. So if we don't do that, you get these bevels, which we don't necessarily need, right? So by doing this one, by angle, you're already limiting the bevel to areas where it makes more sense. So patch, sharp, and arc. So outer bevels are these bevels here, whereas inner bevels, I don't think I actually, inner bevels are here. These are like the, you think of outer and inner as concave and convex bevels. So let's keep that one at sharp. Now, the reason I want to point this out is the outer one. This is super nice. If you go to patch and you're doing like some sub-D modeling, being able to have control over how the edges terminate, like you can see that, how the edges or vertices position themselves at the edge of this is really nice. Now, I'm a super big fan of arc. Like, look how clean Look how clean that is. Like that's so exciting. And you can do arc as well, or sharp on the corners. I don't think sharp. Yeah, I think it's just arc and sharp on the convex edges. But that's, oh, it's so nice. And remember too, because it's a modifier, you can be doing that still as you add more information. Now, just an extra thing, just because this segment's going to be pretty short. If I bring this down, you can see that those bevels shrink and they scale. You might run into this problem at some point. It's not really a problem. It's more about clamp overlapping. So basically, this bevel and this bevel are getting too close to each other, and it doesn't want. It's basically trying to attempt to not allow those bevels to overlap each other, right? So no matter what you do, once it's too close, you can turn this way up, right? And it won't ever surpass. Now by turning the clamp off, let's do that. Now you can go beyond that point, but you can see it overlaps by quite a bit, or by quite a bit. It overlaps the exact amount that you're telling it to, really. So just keep that in mind. Clamp overlap, I believe, is on by default. But yeah, metering, super useful. So vertex groups can be pretty useful, as Lucas showed me on the stream the other day. So I'm just going to kind of go through like how we were using them. Let me just turn the wireframe on here and the grid off. So we've got this mesh, right? We're going to put a bevel modifier on here, and we'll bevel it. We'll just do one segment. Actually, no, let's do a couple here, and then we'll make the bevels arcs. We could leave the outer one sharp. So we have bevels happening here, right? But they're all pretty equal. And let's say that we have some smaller details in these ones. Let's inset these. And extra. I need to turn this off so I can see what I'm doing. We'll bevel, or we'll inset these, and we'll inset them individually. And then we'll run an extrude on these so they go down like that. We'll just kind of scale them outwards a little. Actually, no. Just do this. We'll scale these ones out. So we've got these pieces that just are not going to bevel. I mean, they're doing it right, but it's not very, like, maybe you want the bevels in these smaller areas to be tighter, but you don't want to apply this bevel, right? So that's why you start looking into limiting it by vertex groups. So of course you can limit by angle, and that helps a little bit. If we scale these down, you can see. So maybe we want the bevels to be somewhere around like that level for here, and then the outside ones we want to be maybe a little wider than what they are here. So what you can do is, where are we at here? If you go to the mesh, the object data properties, the green tab, you can make groups. So let's make two groups, and let's turn the modifier off here for a minute so we can see what we're looking at. Let's say we want all of these ones. All right. There's a better way to select it than this way, but whatever. We go here and we can select maybe like the first group, and you have to make sure that you say assign. And then, oh yeah, we probably want this one too. So I'll just select this one, grow the selection, switch to vertices, and then assign to that group also. Now, what you can do is if you go to vertex mode, you can actually select and see which ones are assigned to it. So if we invert this and then assign these to the second group, now we've got 2 vertex groups. We can then go into the modifier and turn it on. And we can assign by vertex group and select the groups here. So you can see now those bevels are only happening inside of this area. So then technically you could copy this. So you have another bevel modifier. And then we'll point this at the other group. And now you can see that you actually can control these bevels separately from the others, from the smaller ones. So then you can get a little bit more finite control when it comes to what you're trying to do. Also, there's some weird smoothing stuff going on here. So let's see what's going on here. So like maybe this top edge, this is where we might run into a limitation where vertices aren't sure. Like Lucas was mentioning this, where we need, right now we only have vertex groups, but we need edge groups as well as another type. So let's see if this is going to work. So these outside ones, I don't think they will, but let's try. Let's remove them from that group and add them to the small group. Yeah, see how this whole inside edge here breaks? Like it's no longer, if I go this way, you can see that there's the really wide bevel here, but now it's not working because this edge is sharing 2 different bevel groups or vertex groups. It is happening down here, but where they meet, it just falls apart. So you probably want to watch out for that. So in that case, I would probably, if you needed this outside edge to be tighter, I would probably then control it with an actual bevel, which kind of defeats the purpose of this. But in certain cases, you're going to have to commit in some way. Man, that is weird looking. And I think that also means, let me see if that, if we select, yeah. So these verts are belonging to a group. So if we just remove them from that group, there we go. A little better. And then we can add our weighted normals. The auto smoothing on there. Yeah, it's kind of working. You can see there are some issues for sure though. But yeah, that's how you play with vertex groups and how they're made. That concludes our recap for this week. We didn't have one last week just because I didn't feel like there was enough things to recap. But if you guys have anything you want me to cover, similar to like the pivots or anything like that, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll add it to the list of stuff that I'll end up covering in like quick little like 3 to 6 minute pieces at the end of these recaps. But until then, I will see you guys on the next stream on Monday.